And good evening, everyone. I'm Bill Ritter with Eyewitness News. Thanks for joining us on this version and edition of Countdown. Just 1 week to go before voters across the tri-state area and across the country take to the polls for this crucial midterm election. We are streaming this program live on our website, ABC7NY, and all of our social media platforms, including my Facebook page. And what a week for this country. Several acts of domestic terror, including a series of pipe bombs mailed to those who criticize the president, including several here in New York. And over the weekend, of course, that gun massacre at a synagogue in Pittsburgh. 11 killed in the worst case of anti-Semitism in the U.S. ever. We're going to dive deep into all that in a moment, how those horrific events are affecting the body politic and the election next week. But we're going to begin with this final week of campaigning, a sprint to the finish line for candidates across the country. And it turns out, depending on who you are and where you live, both parties getting a lift from the current president and the president he replaced, Barack Obama. Take a look at this. In the next 6 days, President Trump holding 11 rallies in 8 states. The goal? Rallying his most fervent Republican base, the one that carried him to victory 2 years ago, with the hopes of maintaining the House and the Senate. What are the chances of that? With me in studio to discuss all that, political analyst Hank Sheinkopf, ABC News deputy politics editor MaryAlice Parks, she's the one in the middle, and Eyewitness News reporter Dave Evans, he's a political reporter. Good evening to all of you. MaryAlice, I'm going to start with you since you helped devise some of this mapping for ABC News. All those rallies he's going to, of course, he loves that, right, the campaign rally. How is that going to go? The states are, of course, strategically designated which ones he goes to.
And not just the states, but exactly where in the state he is going to go. That is very strategic as well. Because President Obama, which I think you're getting to as well, also doing a number of events in the lead up to Election Day. And they're going to a lot of the same states because they're both playing to party bases, both trying to get big turnout numbers. Because
that's key, Hank. If you don't come out to vote, then you're not going to get your party to win. And if your votes are withheld for some reason, you're not able to vote, that affects it too.
Well, it's said exactly correctly. He's going to pick, they're both going to pick exact targets because they're out, it's a time question. Where do you spend the time most valuably in the most, with the best choice of getting the most voters that you really need? It's a battle between the two of them, in fact. This is like two titans getting together in the ring. One's going to win and one's going to lose, and that's what this is kind of about.
And not for nothing, David, they're not coming to the tri-state.
No, not at all. And if you look close at that map, I thought it was interesting that Missouri, Indiana, those are two of the states where the president is going to be visiting over the next couple of days, because I think the Democrats in those states, Donnelly in Indiana, McCaskill in Missouri, I think they're in trouble. And I think that those are blue Democratic senators in red states, and I think there's a good chance, this is just my best guess, I think that they may very well lose on November 6th. And so those are very important places for the president and for former President Obama to be.
And here in the tri-state, New Jersey U.S. Senator Bob Menendez in a very tough fight with Bob Hugin.
Well, it's a lot closer than any of us thought that this was going to be. I think the ads that Hugin has been running just almost nonstop over the last couple of weeks, I think it's definitely having an effect on Menendez. He's up in the latest polling 5 points, but it's much closer.
Almost within the margin of error.
Yes.
Right? And we know that the issue of corruption in Washington, the swampiness of Washington, is top on voters' minds, more so than it's been in the years past. They are tired of that. They want big change. And he's been able to successfully paint Menendez as a part of that swamp, and it's really weighing him down in the polls.
And he was indicted. He can't get away from that. He had an FBI file. What he said was in the FBI file, Hugin, was not accurate, but nonetheless, he had an FBI file.
Since when did accuracy matter in political ads?
Well, we're seeing that, aren't we? And he spent millions of dollars, tens of millions on those ads. They were, as Dave said, very effective. Which leads me to the next point. The Daily News, New York Daily News here in New York, here in Washington, but Daily News here in New York. Their editorial today said, urge people to vote party over politician. Interesting, right? Vote the party because you want to keep, there's the editorial, we have it up on the screen right now. And it made an interesting pitch for that. With Menendez, a lot of New Jersey people don't necessarily like him. They're tired of the corruption, but they also don't want to give Donald Trump, this is a blue state, another Republican in the Senate.
And of course, we've seen Democrats make exactly the opposite pitch, especially in a lot of those House races. We see those suburban districts where you have very moderate Democrats saying, okay, you might be a Republican. I understand the reasons why you're a Republican, but you don't like this president. This president can't go forward. You need a check on this White House. That's why you should cross party lines and vote for me. That's largely been the pitch from a lot of Democrats in the House races.
And that's the new ad from Menendez. You know, Hugin, and it has pictures of Hugin with President Trump that he is running now. Last week, Menendez was running ads saying he's a liar. None of these accusations about me in the FBI investigation, none of those allegations are true. Now he's running an ad this week tying Hugin directly to President Trump, saying if you vote for Hugin, you're basically voting for President Trump.
You've run a lot of these campaigns, Hank. You worked with them, you consulted with them.
Sure.
Where do you think it's going to go?
We're in New Jersey?
Yeah.
I'd bet on Menendez. It's a blue state. This is a blue year. Hugin, I have to say that anybody who doubts the efficacy or the capacity of negative ads to move population is absolutely wrong, because this proves it. I mean, tell anybody who thinks that the internet and that the web alone has beaten out negative ads and political campaigns for television is absolutely wrong. But Menendez should win it. Why? Because who's going to come out? Democrats are coming out in big numbers. And I wouldn't be surprised if most of those Republicans that exist in New Jersey in congressional offices are wiped out.
Before we made into the October surprises we had this week, we talked with you a little bit about the Texas vote. We don't know how it's going because they don't count votes yet, obviously, but it's how many percent higher than normal?
I was trying to think of the good way to say this for TV, and it's a little wonky, but it is remarkable. As of Saturday, so still more than a week out, the early vote represented more than 60% of the total vote 4 years ago. So that is to say that it is just through the roof. The early voting already way bigger than early voting in the past, and already almost as much as the total vote 4 years ago.
We don't know whether it's for Ted Cruz or Beto O'Rourke.
But we know that there's interest.
But there's interest in that. And typically, historically, what does that mean for Republicans?
Historically, it's not good for Republicans. Historically, Republicans do well in midterms because voter turnout is low, especially in Texas, where Texas has been 50th out of 50 in midterm elections for voter participation. So Beto O'Rourke was really counting on new voters coming out and big enthusiasm. The congressman might just get that.
Let's go to the chaos that the October surprises, both the bombs that were delivered last week to critics of the president and to CNN. There's some problem maybe with the New York Times. They thought they had something, and now they didn't. But people are worried. Obviously, people are living in fear a little bit. And the terrible gun massacre at the Jewish temple and synagogue in Pittsburgh. Today, the president, despite a lot of people telling him not to go, who lived in Pittsburgh, went anyway. And I just want to say this before we get into the discussion. I posted on my Facebook page today that said, you know what, we live in a weird time, and we have hit a low point in terms of civil discourse. Why not, if you have a problem with this in Pittsburgh, speak truth to power, don't turn your back to power. Don't ignore him. Tell him why you're angry at him. And I don't know if a lot of people did that, and I think a lot of people stayed away. Impact of that, Hank?
These events are likely to increase the turnout of suburban women as a response to the violence, the chaos, and the disorder, and the general sense that things are not going in the right direction. And when that happens, Democrats are going to benefit from it. I mean, it's just that clear. These incidents of violence will remind people of Parkland and of other things that have occurred in the last couple of years.
But there were gun shootings on campus under Obama.
Yeah, but this is a much more intense, constant barrage of things. We've now had 2 incidents in the last 2 weeks. We keep seeing gun violence. Charlottesville is remaining in people's brains. The battle between right-wing crazies and left-wing crazies and the president's response to it. We're going to see more women turn out, and this is one of the drivers.
David?
I agree with Hank, but I think, and this is just a gut reaction, I think that yes, and we've all done this story many times in the last few weeks, is there culpability on the president's part because there's such a toxic environment that he has perhaps created out there of hatred toward immigrants, Democrats, various different groups. I don't know, though, if that resonates with the average middle-of-the-road voter in places like Indiana and Missouri, which are really going to turn out for this election. I don't know. I think that they are concerned about employment. I think they're concerned about the economy. I think they're concerned about health care. I don't know if they see a direct link that they don't like what he is saying. They are certainly upset about the shootings and the horrible things that have happened in the last week, but I don't know if you can directly tie that to, we've all written this, and that he is perhaps culpable for creating this toxic environment, but I don't know if that is going to turn into more Democrats turning out to vote for House members.
It's a really good point to raise, except that I think Donald Trump thinks it is, and look what he's done in the last couple of days. He came out hard on the border again against this caravan, which, you know, he wanted to rile up the base on that, and the whole birthright issue that he raised just today, saying he wants to basically overturn with a straight from the pen.
If you look at that issue, though, and I don't want to dominate this conversation here on this point, but 77% of Republicans, I think that's the figure that I saw, 75 or 77% of Republicans see illegal immigration as a big, big issue.
Right, which is why he wants to distract from
Only 19% of Democrats do.
But it's not a primary, it's a general election. And I was just watching the beginning of the Indiana Senate debate. The first questions, obviously, on those topics because the president made news. And the moment let Senator Donnelly, the incumbent Democrat, talk about his bipartisan record. He got to talk about the times he's voted with the president. He also got to hit Republicans for not bringing up the DACA issue, the Dreamer issue, which has bipartisan support across the country. So I'm not convinced that biting so deep into that deep red meat helps across the board in these swing areas where incumbent Democrats might be able to say they are the bipartisan voice.
Hank?
I think women are going to turn out record numbers. I think the rhetoric is forcing that to occur even more so. I wouldn't blame the president necessarily. I think that's too far a stretch. But you can blame the president's rhetoric for having some impact. It may not be about him, but we also forget one important thing. Whatever the president of the United States does, I've worked for president, whatever that president does, makes news and creates action, okay? No matter what the president does, whatever he says, there's a response. He's the most powerful, or she hopefully one day, is the most powerful person on the planet. And no matter what that individual does, whether they intend to or not, the reaction is significant.
It seems, though, the point you were trying to make, Dave, is the biggest conundrum of what that all of you, as analysts and reporters, have to deal with. And, how is this going to play out? We don't know until 1 week from tonight. Really, that's the truth, right? We can all predict things, and we could procrastinate too. That might be fun, but we don't know. And in fact, a lot of people who are angry about reporters and the media say, well, you in 538.com 2 years ago said that Trump had a 30% chance of winning the election, and look what happened. So I don't know how much they believe what we're saying anyway. A lot of people, they don't agree with polls. They see that they're wrong sometimes, or they may be off on the margin of error.
And we could also see a week from today the country go in two different directions, depending on where you are. We could see some of those suburban women really reject this president, give the Democrats the votes they need to win those House races, to win those districts, and flip control of the House. We could also see Republicans who are big fans of the president come out in a big way in Indiana and Missouri and make sure the Republicans keep control of the Senate. We could see two divergent storylines next Tuesday.
And in fact, the way we're looking at it right now is here in New York, the 23 seats that the Democrats want to get, several of them are in New York, many in New Jersey, some in New York, and we're going to be covering them closely next week, David.
I think the 11th and the 7th in New Jersey are real toss-ups right now, and I think that those are seats that could the Democrats have a good shot at picking up here in this area. Nationally, weigh in here because you know more about this than I do, MaryAlice, but I get the feeling over the last few days, Democrats don't feel as confident in the House races as they did, let's say, 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think we all still expect a blue wave, but maybe not as big of a blue wave in the House races as we thought. And I think the Senate stays Republican.
And maybe because of one Donald J. Trump, he is, he's good at what he's doing and rallying up the base. You can't deny that. He's good at what he's doing. I want to talk a little bit about women because we have 2 ads I want to show you. Michelle Obama got involved with a vote squad. I'm going to put that up if we can, Patrick, because that was pretty impressive. And she's gone after getting out to vote, challenging people online to go out and vote. She's still very well liked, MaryAlice.
Hugely popular. She pulls these crowds that are unbelievable. They still look like 2008. There's actually very few politicians that can still bring crowds like that. And it's interesting to watch her tactic because it really plays into that theory that people like Stacey Abrams and Andrew Gillum, these new faces of the Democratic Party, are challenging. They think that they're going to win because new voters come out, not because they convinced Republicans to switch over or independents to switch over, but because new young Democrats who have stayed home, who've been disinterested in politics, come out and vote. And Michelle Obama is backing them up on that argument.
And the latest studies that came out, you guys did a story on it. Young people are coming out to vote.
No question. It's not something you normally would expect. Young people tend not to vote. The perfect voter in New York or any place in the country is probably a much older voter, but not anymore. That's changing because the things that are moving these numbers are frankly significant to them. Student loans, health care, things they're beginning to think about, affordable housing.
Gun control.
Gun control. These are young people's issues today.
I want you, Dave, I want to show you this, and all of you. Bloomberg came out with a celebrity ad that was very effective. I think we can play it, Patrick, and you can listen into. Oh, there's no audio, just a bunch of people who are celebrities. Without a lot of makeup, I might add. It's kind of interesting. And they are basically saying, hey, we're calling it the segment, The Power of Sisterhood, and that's what it's really about. And to your point, Hank, they want women to come out, and it's appealing to women.
It's a good, effective ad because it meets the moment. Good media meets that moment. This is the moment for that ad, and it will get people to pay attention and say, wait a second, that's how I feel, and I look like that, okay? And I'm coming out.
Before, I want to go back to our other topic about how Mr. Trump has handled the bombs, the bomb bluff. You know, that he didn't think it was real in terms of his tweets, how he handled the synagogue bombing, a synagogue shooting, and how he's handling this with the birthright. His reaction is going to, you talked about it before, drive suburban women. How much is that going to, the Democrats need that kind of anger towards Trump and to keep that festering?
There are currently 84 female members of the House of Representatives. There's 239 women who are on the ballot for those races this year, which is an unbelievable statistic. If they all were to win, which isn't totally true because there's a few cases where the women are running against women, but even if a big portion of them were to win, we could double the number of women in Congress. And that is not lost on voters this year. They are paying attention. Women are excited to vote for women. They're fundraising for other women. They're donating to other female campaigns, knocking on doors. So it could make all the difference if women come out in a certain way. And
not for nothing, how much do you think that harkens back to what Hillary Clinton did to get 3 million more votes and didn't win? How did that inspire women to run?
It absolutely did. We talk to women all the time who point to that moment, and they also point to things like health care, paid family leave, some of these traditionally maternal issues, but family issues, kitchen table issues that they feel like they really bring a unique voice to.
Go ahead.
And I was just going to say, and you know, we're in the Me Too movement right now. I mean, that certainly is motivating a lot of people, I think, to get out to vote, especially women. And
yet, the whole Kavanaugh hearing gave Republicans a boost at the end. It didn't go the other way.
I think a lot of voters, I think a lot of middle-of-the-road voters felt that Kavanaugh was treated unfairly. Again, I don't know how much that's going to resonate on November 6th, but it could.
It could. Go ahead.
This is a society going through an extraordinary change, generational, from a gender perspective, from a behavioral perspective. Trump is a response to something that is going on in the country. People aren't elected out of the clear blue skies someplace. He's a response to what the change and the instability we see around us. The question is, how do women respond to it? They're going to take that moment and they're going to run like hell.
Dave, last week we covered, and it aired on Up Close on Sunday, but Dave covered it, the live debate between Kirsten Gillibrand and Ms. Farley, her opponent, and Shell Farley. And it was interesting, without getting into the sound of it or anything, and the issues. I asked them afterwards, what do you like about the other person? And Gillibrand said, I respect her for running because it's not hard for a woman and a mother of 3 to be running for an office like this. And it was some of the same feeling from Farley, too. There was a cordiality that was not present when Governor Cuomo, several days earlier, had that sort of bully moment with his opponent.
Governor Cuomo was brutal in his debate with Mark Molinaro. It was just, I think we were keeping a tab in the room, the spin room, as that debate was going on, and I think we got to over 100 times that Cuomo interrupted Molinaro and interrupted the moderators and interrupted everybody, and we got over 100 and we gave up the count. Because it was just, I mean, some people use the word unhinged. I'm not going to say that the governor came across that way, but he was certainly very, very aggressive.
But you wouldn't have had Governor Cuomo saying, you know, I like Mark Molinaro because it's tough for a father to run for governor.
Well, he's not that kind of candidate.
But listening to you, I was reminded of Luba Gretchen Shirley, who's the Democratic candidate out in Long Island in Peking. It's a tough race, uphill battle for her. I interviewed her recently. She said, even if I lose, I think my campaign has made it easier for other women to run. She successfully petitioned the FEC so that she could use campaign funds to pay for child care. So in a very literal way, she might make it easier for other moms and other women on either side, on either party, to run in the future. And that was a big part of what she hopes will be her legacy.
This is a tough race for Peking, far tougher than he thought it would be.
I can't discuss any of those 2 races because of my personal relationship with the governor. and other relationships I have that would be unfair to discuss.
Okay. Well, we'd still welcome your opinion about stuff.
My opinion? Look, it is difficult for Republicans statewide to win this year. In New York, it's difficult anyway. I would argue the following. Kristen Gillibrand just needs to show up, right? Because the numbers show that she's in great shape. She's running for president. She's dumped a lot of money around the country. It stopped of late when she got attacked for it. She would be a very credible candidate, but so would Andrew Cuomo.
She's running for president. Cuomo was going to run for president, you said before.
I said they,
and yet they both said in their debates they're not running for president.
Well, you know what? Everybody says a lot of things. You know, the problem will be when 20,000 people down the street scream out your name, it's hard to say I can't hear anything.
Yeah, the power of the cheer. Just ask Donald J. Trump of Queens. Thank you all for joining us. Hank Sheinkopf, MaryAlice Parks, and Dave Evans. Really interesting discussion. And we'll see you in a week, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, week from
It's going
tonight.
to be exciting. You're going to be on ABC News the entire night there.
It's going to be an exciting night.
Yeah, it really will be. All right. Thank you for joining us. And thank you for watching The Countdown. Be sure to watch us every Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. Well, until election night. We're going to be on all night. And ABC 7 NY, streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, whatever social platform you're on, we'll be on there. We're going to see you tonight at Eyewitness News at 11 o'clock right here on Channel 7. And don't forget, next week, election night 2018 will be on air and online, bringing you updates throughout the evening. And George Stephanopoulos and crew will be on ABC News all night as well. For now, that's it. Thanks for watching. I'm Bill Ritter, and for all of us here at Channel 7, have a good night.